What's going on, guys? I wanted to break down a little bit of Destiny 2. I have some Crucible running in the background, so there's no spoilers, so you're not going to miss anything, but I am going to go into a semi-in-depth review of the game, breaking down the PvE components as well as the PvP. First, I'll start off with the story. The story has about 15 missions. There's a level progression from level 1 to 20, and by the time you've completed the final mission, you'll be right around 19 or 20. And it takes approximately about 10 hours to complete. The story is pretty interesting. I won't give any details away, but it's a pretty good story. It's pretty quick, and it's not particularly challenging, but I don't think it was designed to be particularly challenging. I think it was meant for you to be able to go through with each character that you have, and then pretty much just enjoy it, run through it in about 10 hours, and kind of go from there and get to the real content, which usually in any kind of RNG type game where you're going to grind, the grind doesn't really start until you hit the base level cap, which in this game is level 20, and then you start off on the power level grind. So that's kind of that for the story. It's pretty straightforward. You kind of go from mission to mission. At some of the points, they do kind of put little checkpoints so you can't progress through the story without leveling up your character maybe once or twice, doing some of the other PvE content in the game, so you can level up just a little bit. So they kind of slow you down a little bit in some cases. The next part of the PvE content is adventures. There are adventures scattered on each of the planets. They're good in the beginning when you're just leveling up your character, but once you get about halfway through, almost to the end of the story, they're kind of pointless because most of them just drop rare items, which rare is not really rare in any of these types of games. You're looking for a legendary and exotic, so it's kind of a waste of time to do those unless you just want to go through them, since they are some story driven and kind of go a little bit different than the normal public events. The next part of the PvE content is public events, and that's where you'll be spending a majority of your time, along with strikes. So there's two types of public events, which is the normal one you walk up to, which you'll do that for all of them, but a lot of them you can turn them into heroic public events, which are a little bit more challenging. You have to do some kind of modifier to activate the challenge, and you kind of just go through that. They're probably the best way to actually increase your power level to the first soft cap, which is around 265. Other things you can do are patrols, as well as just gather intel, shoot an X amount of enemies. It's just little tiny mini challenges that allow for in-game currency, so that when you play you can actually trade them in for new loot. The next piece of PvE content is the strikes. So there's two types of strikes. There's the normal strikes, and there's 6 versions of the strike. So that adds a little bit of variety to it. But if you're unlucky like me, I got like several 3 or 4 times in a row. So it kind of, they should have a thing in place where it does, increase the chances if you've already ran one recently, so that you're not kind of stuck doing the same one over and over. When it came to the nightfall is timed. They have different modifications to it every week. So what you'll see in one week, you have to kill enemies, it'll add time. Another one you might jump through rings, and they're continually modifying that. But overall, the nightfall is the exact same one from the beta. So if you're looking for something different, it's not really any different other than that time constraint, and maybe being able to actually get loot that applies to your character. The nightfall actually has a fire team requirement. All the other content that I mentioned, it doesn't have a fire team requirement. You can do just go ahead and do that stuff solo. When you go do the normal strike, you can do matchmaking, so that makes it a little bit easier if you don't have any friends online. But the nightfall is fire team required. So there's the normal, where you actually have 2 friends you party up with, you're on mic and you're just communicating, and maybe you have 2 friends that you want to play with, or 1 friend and you don't have another one to fill the other spot. They do have a thing, it's in the beta phase, so they're still testing it out, but it's called guided games. It'll allow you to pair up with someone who's looking for someone. And if you're solo, that's great, because then you can party up with 2 people that are looking for 1 person. I actually experimented with this a little bit. The times are pretty accurate. For multiple times I had it where it says it was 7 or 10 minute wait. It was right around the 7 or 10 minute wait, so it was pretty accurate. I didn't do anyone where I hosted somebody, but that's kind of how the breakdown of those work. They also have it for an extreme challenge. You can do a prestige version of it, which is kind of a higher level. But it's recommended for level 300, power level 300, which I haven't got to yet, so I haven't experimented too much with those prestige nightfalls. The next PvE content is the raid. This is probably the most interesting part of Destiny that I played that I didn't really experiment too much in the first Destiny. This is Destiny 2, so they modified it a little bit. There are some mechanics in the game that are a little wonky with it. Like when you die, you have X amount of time to revive someone or else the whole team wipes, which is kind of interesting. But it's broken into 4 series of 4 steps that pretty much end up in a boss fight. I don't want to give too much details away, but it does require lots and lots of communication. So if you're not a fan of the mic and you enjoy only to play solo, you will probably never ever do a raid if you do not plan to at least open up and maybe communicate with a couple people. So I would highly recommend that if you're looking for some fun, challenging content. If you do it blind, it's significantly harder than if you know exactly what to do or if you're with a group that knows exactly what to do. So there are the same versions that I mentioned with the Nightfalls. A party of 6 is required instead of a party of 3, but they do have the normal version, the prestige version, and then they have the guided games version. And that's pretty much all the PvE content broken down. There is a good amount, and it does have some good replayability. It does kind of limit your options a little bit once you hit the soft cap, because there's only certain events that will actually increase your power level. So once you get to power level 265, the things that will increase it are the Nightfalls, the raid, and the weekly challenges that say they grant a powerful gear as a reward. So you kind of got to do those. And then just overall exotic engrams will slowly elevate your levels, your power level up to as high as you can pretty much get it. And that's pretty much it. Once you hit the wall, you can either continue to do the hardest content, or you can kind of check in every week and just get your powerful gear and hope that the RNG's on your side, that you actually get gear that you actually are looking to get. So that's pretty much it for the PvE content. What I'll talk about now is the PvP content. So pretty much all there is the Crucible, and it's broken into 3 areas. So currently there's quick play, which is a matchmaking process, so you just pairs you up with random, and that's pretty much it. And if you're in a party, you get randomized with other people. So that's kind of how it works, and you just play with whoever is online. As far as competitive goes, it's the same thing, but it's still 4 versus 4, but fire team is required. You're not going to be able to play it without the fire team. Lastly is Trials, and Trials is probably the most intense version of competitive. And basically how Trials works is you're supposed to get 7 wins before you get 3 losses, but the actual talent pool is a lot better, and it's very competitive. Currently I wasn't a big fan of it, not because I couldn't do well, but because it's kind of broken at the moment. The map design that they've chosen to go with really highly plays to the strengths of the Midas multi-tool, because you can get good map awareness, get good lines of sight, and as a result, if you're able to team kill, you can wipe the other team instantly. They get instantly melted. You don't even get a chance to react. So there's no real gun battles, which kind of ruined the experience for me. I felt that when I played competitive or the regular quick play, the maps really played to the strengths of the game, and you're able to play enjoyably, not because you're just doing better, but because there's actually gunfights where people are using the SMG, they're using the auto rifle, they're using hand cannons, they're using pulse rifles, trace rifles, they're using a little bit of everything, and it gets a little bit more balanced because the way the maps are, you can flank and maneuver in different positions. In the Trials, there's no respawn, so once you die, you're not really going to likely get respawned, because there's a 20-second timer before any of your teammates can respawn you. And then once they do respawn you, odds are you guys are already in a deficit, so it's very hard to come back from. But overall, it was very competitive. I just don't think the balancing on the gun is well, because everyone using the same exact gun. But I think that has more to do with the map's design than the actual gun, because that's a fast-firing scout rifle that just melts. And it's great at the range, but it's a lot harder to close the gap, because the way the sight lines work, you're only going to really close them on one side, but a lot of times that's a little difficult to do, because then you kind of pin yourself knowing exactly where you're going to be. But that's pretty much it for those areas of the game. So when it comes down to my recommendation, would I recommend this game? If you're going to play solo, you can do one playthrough of each character and then do a little bit of some side stuff and maybe do a little bit of the matchmaking. But you're going to be limiting yourself drastically. You'll probably get about 30 to 40, maybe even 50 hours of playtime as a solo player, which is plenty for a game that's only $60. As far as multiplayer, if you're going to play with friends, this game is going to be awesome. You're going to have lots of fun. If you're open to playing with random people and maybe becoming friends that are in your clan or whatever the case is, you're really going to enjoy this game. I would say this game's probably about an 8 or a 9 out of 10. Obviously, not all the DLC content's out, so the game isn't as great as it could be, and maybe they're going to make some tweaks to some of the issues that I found. But overall, the game is fun, so a fun game typically does well. At the end of the day, that's what it really comes down to. Replayability. The events are good enough on their own, but sometimes, you know, you don't feel rewarded because maybe you don't get engrams or get to level up your character anymore. But the overall experience of the game and playing through, you do and will have fun. So I do recommend the game. If you haven't gotten it already, I would say get it. And if you're holding off and maybe thinking if it's going to be enough game for you, just the base game, you can have 30 to 40 hours easy if you do one of each character. And that's something that you could do. And that's pretty much it. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and click that like button. And if you're new and like to continue watching some of my content, go ahead and click that subscribe button. Thank you, and as always, have a great day.